I told people.
Broadcast is live.
There we go. There we go.
Well, good evening, Kevin. How are you?
I'm fine. How you doing, Judge?
I'm
Good
doing
evening,
great.
everybody that's gonna be on here and that's gonna come on here. So I told them 6. I like to get it started early because I know people have time, and we're not gonna be on here long, Judge. I just want to kind of get it going. Like I said, this is not about Kevin. This is about what you know. So welcome everybody. This is your voice, your reason. Where I say you don't need any talking points when you come in here because this is how you feel. This is what you know. So your voice, your reason is your voice, your reason is a platform that allows you to come share what you feel about anything. This is your platform, not mine. We all about elevating voices and stories. And today, I'm just glad y'all gonna be able to come on and join the conversation with a good friend of mine. He's a man of God, a pastor, a Judge Marion Humphrey. We know him from Pine Bluff, but we claim him from Little Rock. He's been up there so long. So, we ain't gonna hold that against him, but that's my guy. Judge Humphrey gonna be on here. We're gonna talk a little bit about what would be justifiable for a prosecutor attorney to say that stand your ground bill would apply. Law would apply for that particular reason. We're gonna talk about a few more things, but you need to hear this. He has a wealth of experience. Judge, will you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself before we get the rolling? And if you have any comments, please make your comments, and we're gonna make sure try to get Judge to answer. If you have any questions or anything, so throw that in. But share this because we want to make sure that everybody get a chance to hear this.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Kevin, for inviting me. I'm pleased to be here. I presently am a lawyer in Little Rock, although a winding down lawyer at my age. And I'm also pastor of Allison Memorial Presbyterian Church here in the city of Little Rock. From 1989 until the end of 1992, I served as Little Rock Municipal Court Judge. Then it's now called Little Rock District Court. It tells something about my age. They changed the name over the years. And then from January 1st of 1993 until December 31st until 2010, I served as a circuit court judge with primarily a criminal docket here in Pulaski County. So altogether, I served as a judge for 22 years in this area, and I was able to retire without being removed, and so I'm thankful for that and thankful for my retirement check, and glad to still be able to move around and be a part of this community and have involvement in it. One of the things you sent to me earlier was that you wanted me to say something about the 15-year-old in Pine Bluff. And of course, Pine Bluff, again, is my hometown, and it just hurts me to see these kinds of incidents occur in my hometown. The fact that a 15-year-old would go to school with a gun and shoot and kill another child, period, is just horrendous. And it is so hurtful. And I don't understand. I don't understand the thought process among some of the young people these days and what they're thinking. What provokes them to take such action? Why are they so angry in the first place? When you're 15 years old, it seems like that's the time to be free of a whole lot of bitterness and animosity and hatred. How does it build up so quickly in the life of a young person is of concern to me, both as a regular citizen, as certainly as a minister in the community. What is going on with our young people? It's very appalling. Then it's so hurtful to families on both sides, obviously to the victim, the mother who loses a child under those circumstances. And it is antithetical to standing up for, in our community, we talk about being Black and being proud. You're hurting Black people when you go in and kill somebody. You're hurting people whose skin pigmentation is the same as yours. And so how does that get to be a position of pride for the community if this kind of conduct is going on? And then your own parents and relatives have to live with the hurt that you've inflicted on somebody else. and the shame that comes with it to a lot of families when they have those kind of circumstances. The fact that parents feel that they have failed in some area when the children behave in that way, and there's no reason to subject one's own parents to that. I had too many cases where there were Black women on two different sides of the aisle in my courtroom. One who's there because her child had been killed, victimized. Another mother who's there because her child is accused of doing the victimizing. And you've got two hurt people who are sitting there. And why inflict this on people whom we love? Why inflict this on your parents? Why subject them to this kind of worry and care and this heavy burden that's placed upon them because their hearts hurt when their children are involved in this kind of activity? I saw some awful situations during the time that I was on the bench, and really, those instances continue to go on, and we just have to be prayerful and stick with it in trying to instruct our young people in a different direction. There is absolutely no excuse to subjecting the entire campus to the kind of violence that the campus was subjected to at Watson Chapel Junior High School, as I understand it, down in Pine Bluff. That's a community that has grown. It's progressed. Pine Bluff has had its challenges as it is, and you've got a great mayor down there who's trying her best to bring Pine Bluff back to the prominence that it used to have. Pine Bluff's lost a lot of population, where people have just packed up and moved and gone other places, whether they go to Little Rock or Hot Springs or Northwest Arkansas or somewhere else, further out in the county or into the contiguous counties. They're trying to flee. And one of the reasons is people look for a school system and school district where they believe that their children can go to school and be in a learning environment and not be subjected to this kind of activities. I just would think it would be very horrifying and devastating on the other young people at Watson Chapel Junior High School to have to witness that, to be in the midst of it. It's something that will carry with them for the rest of their lives. And so that's no reason that we've got to do something about this. And I think the whole community has to come together, not just in Pine Bluff, but here in Little Rock and wherever we are. We've got to talk to these young people, and we've got to tell them there's nothing to be proud of in this behavior. This is hurting our community. You're doing harsh and bad things in our community. We could be doing something else. You could be studying. I mean, why to go to school? Had you done your homework? Had you done anything to prepare to be in class? What is the purpose of all of this foolishness? It is foolishness, but it's foolishness that is harmful to people. And I just wish and hope and pray that there is some way that we can curtail it. We can put a stop to it, and we're gonna have to get on our knees and pray on this one. These kids have a lot of issues going on, and we've got to get to the bottom of it, and we've got to find mature minds and who are able to address these issues.
And this, I guess, is something I want to ask within that, Judge. And I heard you say you had a chance. You've been in the court probably so many times where there's the victim, and both parents have been in the room, and I don't. There's no right and wrong, because, like I say, both of them are going to be going through something. One son has passed away, and another son going to be probably incarcerated for the rest of his life. And my thing is, how often do you see the fathers in there with these young men, and not just in capital murder, just in robbery, theft for property, and everything? How often have you seen the fathers in there, the black fathers in there, in the state of Arkansas, just in there supporting their kids, since you've been on the court? How often is that to you?
Well, I saw more mothers, but there were some fathers, and there's some fathers in prominent positions from time to time in some of this stuff. And so it's not just a matter of coming from a single parent situation. It would help if the brothers were there to establish that presence and demonstrate to our young boys coming along that there's a different way of proceeding in life. But even with mothers, and some of these kids have been taught better. Let me say that. Whether they have two parents in the home or only one, some of them have been taught better. There's just been a lure to the streets, to getting involved with the wrong elements out here, or finding something of commonality with people who have a negative perspective on things. I've never understood how it is why people would want to be involved in some kind of gang activity, for instance, where you have to do something bad to somebody in order to be initiated. Why don't you do some good things? Why don't you go next door and help the elderly, carry their bags in the home, or do something? Why is it that people have to find something negative to do in order to be a part of something where they say that they find family?
Yeah, I think a lot of that. I fear my fleeing echo. I think, that I don't know. It's just a lot of people confused why kids do certain things, but the father not being there, it's a combination of a lot of things, man. And I think I always say that some fathers don't understand. If you don't have $1 in your pocket, you still can spend some time and love on your kid to help raise them the right way until you get on your feet. And sometimes they think that since they don't have money, they can't be a good father. But Judge, I just want to ask you a question. We was talking about that shooting, that what happened down there, and I want to talk about the charge that was just presented to the young guy yesterday. I think it was on yesterday. Is that common for prosecutor attorneys to charge a 15-year-old with capital murder in this era? Now, I know we did it during my era when I was coming up. That was kind of real common. But I'm just saying, were you surprised when he got charged for capital murder?
No, not
the other day.
No, not at all. I think that it just represents the feeling on the part of the prosecutor that they're just tired of this. They are frustrated by it. They don't know what to do. They want to send a message. They want to get tough. It doesn't hurt their re-election prospects either by coming across that way. You've got people who are outraged about something like that. Oh, it's not just white people outraged either. There are black people who are outraged by that, especially those who have children who are attending that school. People want their kids to be safe, and they don't want to send them to school and risk their kids not being able to return home because some kid has a problem or they has an issue. Once you start firing shots in a place that's crowded, you don't know where these bullets are going to end, who's going to get hit, and that may end up, all of that kind of thing. Why even do that? Why go to school under those circumstances? Tell somebody that this kid's been bullying me, he's been bothering me. Why isn't this an avenue of trying to address the issue? Why do you have to take matters into your own hand? Tell your parents. See if your parents can go to the school, talk to the principal, talk to the superintendent. If you don't get anywhere with the principal, tell somebody about it. Tell the authorities that this kid has been bullying me. Now, I haven't seen the stories on television, but I understand that the child that's charged is kind of a big-sized kid. I don't know that for sure. I did not see the news clips, but and I just don't know where all the bullying comes from. Maybe the other guy had a group of people. We'll hear more and more about the details of that. But whatever has been going on in the past, this one is the one who fired a gun, and killed someone, and he killed them at school in the midst of other kids. And that is harmful to everybody who is even around this situation. It's just a harmful situation. Doesn't mean that, as a minister, I believe in forgiveness for anybody. But, it's asking a lot of the parents right now, the one who is deceased, to try to be merciful towards the one who did it. I hope they can be at some point, but it's a stretch.
And I gotta say, I gotta ask you. So, uh, some parents, some people, not parents, some people just feel like charging that young man with as an adult was just racist, was hateful, and everything. But you saying like that he did a thought out charge. That wasn't just a regular shooting in the air, or throwing rocks over the bridge. So you saying it warrants that type of charge?
Well, ask the mother of the victim
Yeah.
if she thinks it's racist to charge that other child with capital murder. Ask her. I had a situation once, and I don't know if your viewers can see me, but it was like this. There were three young black men charged with a murder of two other young black men. The two had gone to a place following in behind two girls. And you know what their intentions were, of course. But when they got there, here come three guys out of a room who get them, tie them up, put them in the back of the trunk, take them out to Heinemann Park, shoot them down, and kill those two boys who were relatives, as a matter of fact. Well, and when it came down to it, the prosecutor had offered one of them a deal to testify against the other two. The others were convicted by juries, and so the third one had actually entered a plea, and but then he copped out on the prosecutor's deal with him. And I had that guilty plea in front of me, which I don't have to allow the person to withdraw when he flipped the script on the prosecutor. And so I didn't permit him to do it, and I gave him the same sentence that the other two had been given. He could have gotten off with less had he cooperated with the prosecutor, but I gave him the same sentence, which was life. Well, at that point, the mother of one of those who was deceased caught my eye. She's sitting out in the audience. One mother's on one side of the courtroom, the other mother's on the other side. And the mother of the one who was killed caught my eye, and she did this. She didn't verbalize anything so that anyone could hear. She just looked at me, Kevin, and she did this. She said, Now that's the way a mother of a victim feels. She didn't say, you know, they're racist for going after my boy, for this other boy like that. She's looking at it from the standpoint, my child is dead. My child is not coming back. This is a black woman. Now, there are two black women here. Don't just we can't just be sympathetic towards one. We got to look at the one who has been hurt by not being able to have her child around. And this is the kind of situation these prosecutors, and I consider myself to be fairly, you know, compassionate on a lot of things, drug cases and all. I looked at them a lot bit different than some of these other folks may look upon them. But when it comes down to taking somebody's life, I think that you just have to see it for what it is, and for the sake of the people who are victimized, which is our people. This stuff is harmful to the black community.
Yes, it is.
More harmful to the black community than it is to the white community. How in the world can this be racist? And you know, the white people are scared, so they just go ahead and try to throw the book at everybody. They don't even think about it. Charge him with everything. And you cannot seek the death penalty against the 15-year-old, by the way. U.S. Supreme Court has outlawed that. So even if he's charged with capital, the only thing he can really get, the highest he can get, is life. And at life, I'm not sure they can just do that under Supreme Court rulings. They've got to give a jury the opportunity to consider a term of years. There's been a series of cases, one out of Alabama and out of Louisiana, that established that principle, that anytime a person is 18 years old and given a life sentence, it will be unconstitutional if the jury was not given an opportunity to consider a term of years. That's only for minors. And so they can't just go in and ask. First of all, they can't ask for the death penalty, and they can't solely ask for life. Now, a jury can give them life, but you got to give the jury, in this case, an opportunity to consider a term of years. who's on the jury. This case is going to be in Jefferson County. I'm from Jefferson County, and I know in Jefferson County, you're going to get a considerable number of African Americans in that jury pool. So it is not likely to be a jury verdict that comes back from just a white jury. There are going to be some black folks on that jury, if it goes to a jury, who are going to consider all kinds of factors here. The fact that the prosecutor has charged him too, I probably need to say, charged him as an adult does not mean that he necessarily will be tried as an adult. He does have a right, because of his age, to a juvenile transfer hearing, at which time there can be witnesses and testimony from different people who would advocate his case being sent away from the regular adult court to juvenile court. The judge of that court will have a decision to make as to whether or not this young man should be sent to juvenile court, or whether his case should be tried there in circuit court, adult court. So it's even by the charge being filed in adult court, it doesn't mean that it will remain there, but he's going to have to come forward with, they're going to have to present some reason for the judge to decide to shift this case to juvenile court. And the judges understand the public sentiments on this. They understand parents. There is one African-American judge in Jefferson County who could possibly hear this case. There's a white female who could possibly hear. This is just the way the ones who handle cases in Jefferson County. But who knows how they would rule? Because even the black man sitting there has children. Children who are perhaps junior high school age, and there is the sentiment that a 15-year-old knows what he's doing. To some extent. In fact, I had a case involving a white kid who had killed a black man over in Jacksonville. And there was an effort made to transfer that to juvenile court. And I did not transfer that to juvenile court. It stayed in the adult court. And when he was, I don't think he was 15. He was a minor, though. But the point was that there was an effort by some to say that he should not be tried as an adult, or he should not be convicted the way that we would look at older people in that court situation. And I understand from my bailiff, who takes the jurors out, he overheard the jurors back in the jury room just at war with each other, what to do with this young white kid who had killed a black man. And he said that there was a black man in this community who was a coach. And he held firm that this white kid should be convicted of this crime. That he didn't just accidentally do this, or he didn't just without thinking about what he had done. He said, look, I coach young people. I know a 15-year-old knows what he's doing. And he saved the day from what my bailiff could overhear coming out of the jury room, what the jurors going at each other, with some saying we shouldn't convict him on this charge with this black coach. That's why it's so important, too, to have black people on juries, by the way. All kinds of these cases, they need to have their presence so that their attitudes, their beliefs, their experiences can come into play when decisions are being made, because the judge wasn't making that decision, a jury of the people. And he said, but for this black coach being back in that jury room hammering away on it, some were going to try to say, well, we shouldn't find him guilty of this offense. But that's the way it goes. So whether or not that young man in Pine Bluff goes in adult court, he still can have a jury trial. There may be some jurists who are very sympathetic or or they have a heart for young people, and they're going to try to see it from his young eyes. But, there are others who are going to say a 15-year-old knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He may not know the way a 33-year-old knows what he's doing, but he knows what he is doing when he pulls the trigger. And he knows what can happen once a trigger is pulled. And why does he have a gun in the first place? Why?
That's one thing that it bothers me a lot, because I understand how a lot of kids getting a gun. Like some of these 14, 15-year-old kids that has guns, they're not going buying these guns. They're breaking in cars and houses and stealing these guns from people's property. So that's why a lot of guns, if you just look at you look at a police report and see that 300 houses been broken into. Out of that 300 houses, I'm almost certain about 15-20% of those houses had some type of firearm in them, and they breaking houses every day. And so it's easy for young people to get guns. And then sometimes they take them from their own home that they know where their parents. That's why I always tell parents, do not allow your kid to see where you had your gun at, because that gun will tempt that person. He'll be thinking, they play videos with guns all the time. They hear rap stars with guns, but anyway, Judge, I was glad you talked about that juvenile. He still has the opportunity to go to juvenile, and it's up to the judge.
He does, because the president, whoever the judge that it's assigned to in Jefferson County Circuit Court, when he's charged as an adult, will have a responsibility of conducting a hearing on whether or not it should be sent away from him and transferred to juvenile court. In juvenile court, there aren't any life sentences that I'm aware of for the most part. They have extended juvenile jurisdiction, but you're not going to have a life sentence there. And so it could be sent there, but there's going to be a lot of pressure on that judge. He's going to have to think about how the community feels about that. And I know from having grown up in Pine Bluff and know people there still, people have just been exasperated by what has happened down there in the first place. With all of the crime, with all of the drugs. It wasn't like that when I was coming along. Of course, now that was some years ago since I was coming along. But there are people who still remember a different day. And they're hopeful of returning to that day where it was a community that was progressive and people look forward to going to school, getting an education, and trying to move up the ladder a little bit, do better than what their parents had done economically, not necessarily that do better spiritually, because those poor people, have great spirits in many instances. So it wasn't that, but it's just if you can get a better life economically, have a better job, go for it. And that's what they wanted for their kids. But it's hard to get to that if the kids are going to school with a gun and taking the gun out and shooting somebody, with everybody standing around just being horrified by what has just happened. What is the purpose of this? What purpose does it serve? And all the compassion isn't going to go to that one young person who pulled the trigger.
So right.
The compassion is going to go to those other kids who had to endure that, who had to watch it. They don't want to see this. Their parents don't want them exposed to this. So there's got to be some concern for them. It's got to be some concern about the community. And at some point, people just say, look, we've had enough. We've got to put a stop to this somewhere. It's time out for this. Where will this ever end if we don't take a stand against this and let folks know this is just totally unacceptable. It is intolerable. And we're whatever happens in this case, we hope that the young person can have a change in his life, have a new relationship with Jesus. But, at some point, there has to be something done to protect other people who are trying to do something, trying to get somewhere, and who aren't so angry, and who don't feel that even if bullied, that they have to resort to this kind of measure. There's got to be some other way of resolving disputes and differences between people.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good people in Pine Bluff. I know plenty of people down there that that are just trying to reach out and work with some of the young people down there, because they understand. It's crazy because when I was coming up, Pine Bluff wasn't really known for just murder, but all like just over here the last 5, 6 something years, that's all you hear about is murder. And I have been saying lately, like, what has got on with Pine Bluff? Because they wasn't always just like Little Rock had all those crazy numbers of murders in the 90s. And now lately here you just hearing about Pine Bluff. I was like, man, what is going on? Like, and it bothers me. But there are a lot of good people that have programs that's working down there. And Judge, and I want to shift gears a little bit and kind of talk about this. And thank you for that, because I didn't know the procedure. And here it is, Judge. Here's another question that's tied into you was talking about judges down there. Now, how do they select a judge, or does it just fall? So y'all have some type of system where it falls in this person place or that person place as far as who gonna get this case? Is that
it's supposed to be randomly selected, except well, I can speak for Pulaski County. The cases are supposed to be randomly assigned. It's just a matter of when your time comes up in the computer, except capital murder cases. They alternate. I believe that they don't just go into the computer isolated, so that one judge doesn't get all of them. That kind of thing. Just because the case pops up by a number. There's something else with them. I don't know what they do in Pine Bluff. I imagine that they are randomly selected, because if not, they would certainly be suspect and subject to some kind of litigation saying that all the capital murder cases are going to this one judge who may be notorious one way or the other in the view of some people, be harsh or tough and not even consider the factors that you consider in whether or not there's a grant of a motion to transfer, because there are some cases where judges do send some things to juvenile court. I know I used to send plenty of them, but sometimes I draw a line, and it didn't have to be capital murder either. Your kid could come in. There are some things that I thought that if you're going to do, you need to be in the adult system to do them, because you're not getting it about how you're supposed to act out here in the community. I had one example I'll give where a young man was said to be a fine young man, but his thing was purse snatching. And he snatched the purse of a lady, and she fell out of her wheelchair. Well, I don't have time for that. I didn't have time for that. I don't want to think too long about whether or not I'm going to send somebody to juvenile court who dragged an elderly lady out of her wheelchair. We have to, some things I just find I'm old school on. Some things are just unnecessary, and I might not ponder over them as long as I would and think about some of the other things. Now, if you're going to do this, if you don't have any respect for the elderly, if you haven't been taught that, if you haven't learned that, then let's just deal with you straight up. And that's just the way you do it. So judges are human beings, and they have orientations one way or the other. They have backgrounds. They have certain ways that they were reared, that they believe in. And so that's another thing young people have to understand. When you get involved in something, you turn your situation over to somebody else. I used to tell kids when I'd speak to them in schools, why would you want to catch a charge and come to a jury in Pulaski County, and you have a group of folks sitting up on the jury who come from Chenal and North Hills and over there near the military base in Jacksonville? Why you want to say, here's my life? You give me some consideration, please. No, you don't put yourself in those positions where you're having people who, first of all, a lot of people don't like to do jury duty. Some people who had the time to do jury duty were housewives. And you know that you're not going to get a whole lot of folks over in the hood who have the luxury of being able to take off and do jury duty and all of those things. And so you tell them, look here, you telling these folks to make a decision about yourself. And what a lot of them have done, they read the newspapers about all the crime that's going on. So when they come to court, to do jury duty, they ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
They ready. So you got to understand that. You got to talk sense to the people out here in the street. Talk sense to the brothers out here.
Yeah.
You are turning your life, your future over to strangers.
Yeah.
I would make the case to kids, look, if I have somebody, if I'm going to go before a jury, I would want that jury to have folks on there like my mama, my pastor, my wife, folks. I want some folks who are going to be favorable to me. That is not what you get in this. You get people who are neutral. I don't want neutral people making decisions on me. I want somebody who's on my side, who's down with me.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get your homies sitting up there on the jury panel.
Yeah. Trust me, I know. I know. I know what that feels like, and so like you said, not one look like me, and I got everything what you just talked about. But yeah, Judge, we got about 20 some minutes left, and I want to switch gears real quick. And I want to talk about that. And I know you've been keeping up because you always involved and stay alert about everything that's going on. And I just want to talk about that Stand Your Ground bill that's out there, Senate Bill 24. Now, I have had people to come over there and talk about that bill. But what I want you to as from your experience in being the judge and working with prosecutor attorney, can you tell the people that's on this Facebook Live and YouTube Live what would be justifiable for somebody to say the Stand Your Ground law applies here? Like, cause we hear so many rumors, and I mean, I want outside of the color stuff, the black and white. What would you think would be justifiable that a prosecutor attorney say, "Oh, that's a Stand Your Ground"? Without that person, there's no color involved. But then I want you to talk about what it looked like when there's color involved as well, too, from a white person to a killing a black and then a black killing a white. You break that down for us.
I think it's too subjective. I think it's too subjective to say that somebody reasonably believed that the person was going to do something to them, physical injury or deadly physical force to be used. We already have sufficient self-defense. If the facts will speak in these cases, and jurors are sympathetic if someone feels harm, they're in harm's way, or if someone has been threatened, or if someone is really trying to defend himself or herself. You can always go in court and argue self-defense. You do not need Stand Your Ground to go in court and argue self-defense. Stand Your Ground, it basically eliminates the duty to retreat, where you can move away from the situation without using deadly force against somebody. There can be some people who intimidate you or seem as though they pose a threat, but at some point the situation is such that you don't really feel physically threatened by what they are doing, what they're saying. You can walk away, you can go somewhere else. This bill says you don't have to walk away, you don't have to retreat in such situations, even if the situation is not escalating to the point that you really believe that person is going to do some physical harm to you. You have this kind of reasonable belief. Well, anybody, that really gets to be subjective when people start putting their reason onto it, rather than simply saying that, I know I can retreat from this situation. I don't have to stand here. I don't have to pull my gun out. I don't have to use it. A lot of people are using guns just out of, the macho kind of sentiment. People want to be tough. They want to be bad. They want to show that they don't have to walk away from a situation. They don't have to retreat in it. Sometimes you can just pull your gun out and wave it, and people will know. You don't have to fire it. And so, it says you don't have to do that. You don't have to just show it in order to break up the situation, to stop it from escalating. But you can actually at some point just use it when you really don't have to use it. And my question is, why would anybody want to kill someone when you could retreat without killing somebody? What's the point? What have you and all these people over here at the legislature who are so have such religiosity? Why do you want to kill somebody? Why do you want to encourage people to show how tough they can be or how bad they can be? It used to be this, and they struck this portion from 52606. It used to be that a person may not use deadly physical force in self-defense if the person knows that he or she can avoid the necessity of using deadly physical force by retreating. And then they go on to make some exceptions to that. But now they just eliminate that. If the situation seems to be one of where the person reasonably believes that a person is committing or about to commit a felony involving physical force or violence, using or about to use unlawful deadly physical force, or imminently endangering the person's life, or imminently about to victimize the person, they don't have to retreat. And there's a lot of subjective points. There are a lot of subjective points in there where you can make a decision. This person really isn't going to use deadly physical force against me. They're just mouthing. Mm-hmm. They aren't really going to do anything. Or I'm in a position where I can get away. I can just get in my car and leave and de-escalate the whole thing. This law takes that duty, that responsibility away from anyone who wants to suggest that they feel threatened in a physical way, deadly physical way. And not all the times, not even deadly. Mm-hmm. They can still pull out their weapon and fire it. People are justifiable. Pardon?
Is that justifiable?
I wouldn't think it's justifiable. We already have self-defense. How many times have people said that they got convicted when they really had a self-defense argument and the people didn't pay them any attention and it sounded reasonable? I mean, if it appears that someone is attacking another person, most jurors that I have seen are going to go with that person who feels that threatened. But this stand your ground takes away the duty to retreat, where a person can retreat safely. I don't mean retreat where you don't think you can get away from a guy who has a weapon or something like that, but you can just retreat from the situation without anybody getting shot. Now, this says you don't have to do it. You can just stand your ground and say, I'm not going to be intimidated. And you say anything else, or you appear to be about to do something, I can fire.
What appear to look like? What does that look like? Because I'm sure a lot of people are curious, like what appear or perceived look like for us as Black people and just Black people over our minorities and stuff. What does that look like?
Well, it looks like George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin, where George Zimmerman took used deadly force when Trayvon Martin might have been getting the best of him, but after George Zimmerman had been the aggressor. Well, this makes it easy for people to be aggressors and still come out firing and potentially killing someone else after they themselves and get off scot-free. Mm-hmm. After they themselves have initiated the encounter, they had initiated the confrontation. Mm-hmm. And that's what is so disturbing, that you're saying, yeah, even if the person started it, if they feel that the person that they started it with is going to get the best of them some kind of way, then they can take this kind of action and don't have to pay a penalty for it. Mm-hmm. If they were simply standing their ground at some point. Now, they do make some exceptions. They try to make sure that this doesn't apply to gang activity, for instance. That's emphasized a lot, that it couldn't be like, here's a Crip and a Blood, and the Crip talks some stuff, and the Blood pulls out the gun, and Blood actually could walk away at that point, or the Crip who started it could walk away, but he doesn't. And he just, at that point that the Blood comes back at him, he feels threatened, he can go ahead and shoot. They take that option away by specifically referring.
But I'm even with that, I'm saying, how they gonna be able to say who's a Crip and the Blood? Not everybody got tattoos, and not everybody been in jail. So that within that, I'm just thinking about it. How you gonna tell me I'm a Crip or a Blood? I don't have no tattoos. I've never been to jail, never been affiliated for it. But just because I'm black or Hispanic, then they say, oh, they was in the gang, they don't apply to them. Like they didn't justify. They
don't say black. They just say gang activity.
Mm-hmm.
You read between the lines, you know what they're talking about. They don't just come right out and say black. This statute says a person who uses or threatens to use physical force as otherwise permitted under this subchapter does not have a duty to retreat before using or threatening to use the physical force if the person is, one, lawfully present in the location, two, not engaged in criminal activity that gives rise to the need to use physical force, and three, not engaged in any activity in furtherance of a criminal gang, organization, or enterprise as defined in under 5-74-103. So anybody who doesn't fall in one of those categories may go ahead and use physical force that others would not be permitted to use. So they're saying that some of the gang members cannot use stand your ground.
I'm still trying to figure out how they're going to say who's in the gang and who's not. So basically what I'm hearing is, if you're black, you can't use stand your ground because you're in the gang. Well, at least the black males anyway, because they not. I don't understand how they're going to be able to determine who's in the gang and who's not. That's the thing.
They're going to use their associations. Probably they're going to delve into their background. If they have any kind of prior record, they'll bring it up. They may try to introduce pictures of tattoos and things to establish that this is a gang member. Because the fact of the matter is, I had a case years ago involving whites who were in that kind of situation, and the victims' parents were upset at me because I didn't call it a gang activity, because it's one thing you come in court and just say he's a member of a gang, but you don't have a membership roster. So how can you say he's a member of a gang? What are you? It's the point you're making. How do you really know that a person is or is not a member of a gang? Because who's going to come in and testify? Yeah, he's one of my associates. He's in my group. We all Crips, or we all Bloods, or we all stuff like that. People don't come in and say that. So there's kind of an undercurrent of inference, but you can't really prove it because, as I said, it's not like you have membership in the NAACP. You may be able to subpoena the membership roster. I don't think the gangs and all have such a thing. So, but they're just going to assume, and they're going to make some suggestions, and they may be able to slip it in that this person has been involved with the gang. I don't know how they're going to do that, get that past the defense attorney by making that kind of statement. They'll try.
Yeah, and I can see this. I can see that happen. Somebody named Leanna Kimball said, "Can this be repealed?"
Sure, but not with this present legislature. This present legislature is terrible. They are reactionary on all things. The Republican legislature is going for the most right-wing issues. I imagine that this same legislation, something similar to it, it has been brought up in a number of different states. Nowadays, there's a template. Right wingers have a template they pass from state to state. I think liberals may have one that they pass from state to state. And hey, this is good legislation we have in Georgia or Florida or somewhere. And so they pass it on, and others see it, and they draft legislation in their home states similar to it. Arkansas legislature went Republican after President Obama was elected. Mm-hmm. And we never had a Republican legislature before. But once he was elected, people just were turned off with Democrats because you had a black Democrat in the White House. That's the way the race issue works. And so, and they just look for the most reactionary legislation possible, it seems like. And our poor black legislators try, I'm sure, but they're so vastly outnumbered.
Yeah,
there's not a whole lot that they can do.
Well, Demir, my good friend Wood said, who just like if he was his cousin who's in the game, but I'm not in the game, and he said then I have to use the law. He said so he won't be, basically just saying it. He won't be justified. So he's not justified, even though he's not in the game.
It depends on the circumstances where he is. If he's with that cousin, if they have identified like that, it's there's going to be that impression that he's part of it too, and therefore he won't be able to exercise the stand your ground rights that some other people are going to be able to exercise. But the whole premise of it is just terrible. Mm-hmm. Why do we need this? Why do we need to talk about stand your ground? You already have a right to defend yourself. Period. You got a right to defend yourself. There's no law that says somebody has to stand up and take a beating of anybody. Mm-hmm. There is no law that says that. And so people have used whatever it has taken in order to get away from harm and trouble. And they come in court, and jurors understand what they did, why they took the action that they took. And if they believe them, they can get acquitted unless they have something else. So nobody has to say, stand your ground. It's just not like that. So why is it necessary to say this? It's just I don't know. I don't understand where people think this is going. I think it's going to be harmful to the way the state looks. I think it hurts the opportunity to get tourism from some people. They aren't going to be bothered with coming in a state where all this kind of stuff goes on. And people are going to be more on edge in saying something to some people. People are going to think that, hey, if we get into a heated discussion, that guy on the other side can say he's going to reach for a weapon and fire at me because he has this reasonable fear that I'm going to do something that physical force or deadly physical force to him.
So are you saying that I can't argue with white people no more at the bar?
Well, you better be careful. It depends on who the prosecuting attorney is and what they would allow that person to get away with.
Yeah, and that's a question I was going to ask you, and I'm glad you said, because somebody asked me, one of my friends who was talking about, how often do prosecuting attorneys' seat come up?
Every 4 years. So in 2022, the prosecutor here will be up for re-election.
4 years, y'all hear that, people?
No, I'm sorry, but it's 2 from now. It'll be 2022, but they have 4-year terms. So they run every 4 years. But actually, the cycle will come up in 2022 for the prosecutor here in Pulaski County. I don't know if he runs at the same time with all the other prosecutors around the state, but I know this one for Larry Jegley, his term is up in 2022. I understand there's a black woman who's plans to contest.
I would love to meet her.
Yeah, I'm sure you will probably be seeing her around because she's got to get to the community in order to have any chance of winning. She's got to get that black vote. Her name is Lisa Walton, and yeah, she has been in the public defender's office for a good period of time. But she has indicated to people that she intends to run, whether or not Mr. Jegley runs again for re-election.
Yeah. So if anybody out there, Facebook friends, y'all know Lisa Walton, hit up and tell her that you're ready to support her. And we don't. And I'm glad you're talking about elections, Judge. So we know Judge Griffin, who was on here about a couple of weeks ago, his seat is coming up, and I just, talking to him, whoever that person may be, I just want that person to be a strong person, and that person, whoever that person may be, I don't want them to just be the judge just because they're the judge. Are there some people you have in mind who you think would be an excellent judge?
Well, I've heard 3 names of people who are planning on running, and I think all of them are capable people. And even at the risk of getting in trouble, as I may get in trouble, in Pulaski County, there are 5 judicial seats that are elected out of a predominantly African-American voting majority. Mm-hmm. It's a result of the Hunt decree, a lawsuit filed by Eugene Hunt, a black lawyer in Pine Bluff, that was filed maybe 91. It was settled in 1991, and so there were certain majority African-American districts created. Now, out of those districts, here in Pulaski County, there are 5 seats. Mm-hmm. And presently, in those 5 seats, there are 2 both juvenile judge positions, and they are occupied by Judge Shanice Johnson and Judge Tawana Bird. And then there are 3 at the courthouse. They're occupied presently by Judge Alice Gray, Judge Leon Johnson, and Judge Wendell Griffin. And so 3 positions we have 3 black women and 2 black men. And so I'm hopeful that we can keep some black men in some of these positions. Yeah. I know that I'm not saying that get somebody who's not qualified, by the way, either, or the one who's least qualified. But I think that it's important for black men to occupy some of these seats. It's important not only because of appreciation for some of the people who are coming through these courts. I think we need a black male perspective at the courthouse. Those 5 are part of a judicial district that has 17 judges. And so there are 12 white judges and 5 blacks. Well, sometimes the judges have meetings. And I think the black male perspective is important to be brought up, to be articulated in these meetings. We're a community. And I think that it's important for all of us to work together in our community so that everybody's position has some validity, and everybody's perspective on this thing is brought out. It's important. I don't want to see the situation where these courts, when it comes down to the criminal courts, have so many black males disproportionately coming through, and the only black males that are registered in the criminal justice system are those who are wearing uniforms. Mm-hmm. Who are being brought into the courtroom. I think there's a role for all of us to play so that our perspective is well represented. I know, going back to the years I practiced law before I became a judge in Jefferson County and down in Pine Bluff, it was an obvious situation when it came to the selection of jurors that the least desired by the prosecuting attorney to sit on a jury was a young black male. They'd always find a way to strike young black males. I suppose they thought that many of them had run-ins with the police, or if it was a drug case, they might have thought that many young black males experimented with drugs. But they were not preferred to sit as jurors. I'd have some young black men I really wanted to serve on some of my juries when I was a lawyer. But the prosecutor would always try to strike them. They'd keep an older black man over a younger black man even.
Mm-hmm.
And the perception is that young black men are disaffected from the society. There's a perception of the role that young black men should have. In Pine Bluff, though, and I'm going to tell you about Pine Bluff since I grew up there, there was also a feeling that blacks who were connected to certain jobs in Jefferson County were more part of the establishment than other blacks. So that the prosecutor wants a conviction.
Mm-hmm.
And, the perspective of a young black male is not necessarily one that leans towards convictions if the evidence is close. If the evidence is close, there's some people who come to jury duty and they think, whether or not they say it, because they're going to say that they don't look at it this way, but a lot of them figure that if a person is sitting there charged with a crime, chances are he did it.
Mm-hmm.
He did it. I don't think that would go along with the black males, the young black males, more so than anybody else. That was their perception back then. And it just comes by, I know this is anecdotal. I wasn't doing a poll or a study back in Jefferson County, but I was observing. Mm-hmm. I know what went down in that. And when a young black male is strong and he gets back there in the jury room, he can speak to the experiences that he has. He can look at this situation a little bit differently. My son was recently stopped by a state trooper back in August, coming from Fayetteville to Little Rock, placed in the back of the seat, handcuffed. He hadn't done anything, but because he was driving a U-Haul, and he's a black male, they assumed that he was doing something wrong. Just assumed it. That is an experience that black males have.
Yeah.
And I think people who have that experience or need to be part of the criminal justice system, I think their presence needs to be felt. And I think that's a situation with black males that others don't really encounter to an extent. Black females may, but chances are, if you got 4 chances of stopping somebody, the police can't stop everybody. But if it's a white man driving a U-Haul, a white woman driving a U-Haul, a black male driving a U-Haul, or a black female driving a U-Haul, and they were trying to get their quota of drug stops, which of the 4 do you think they'd stop first?
The black male 2-3 times.
Well, that's just the point. Black men are subjected to that. That's just the reality of life. And so I think you need the perspective of a black male in this system, and because they face it. Recently, I was trying to send my godson some money, and in Charlotte, and there was a MoneyGram from Walmart. They interrogated him on the end where he was receiving the money. They interrogated me on the telephone, and I was sending the money. They wanted to know, how long have you known him? What is his birth date? What's going to go down with the money? And finally, I told him, I said, ma'am, I used to be a judge. I understand why you're asking all these questions, but this is all legal. It's all appropriate. And I have a right to send him some money if I want to send him some money. But he said they were asking him, like, are you involved in drugs? He's in Charlotte, and I'm here, and I'm really on my car phone coming from Pine Bluff back to Little Rock. And they were just interrogating me about this. Black folks experience this. And I think even more so, with males. I had, this is really an anecdote, but there was a white man who came to jury duty. He never got seated because they'd ask, "Can you be fair?" In these cases, and he'd raise his hand and he said no. And you know the reason he said he couldn't be fair, and he's a white man.
Why is that?
He said because every time I come up here for jury duty, there's a black male sitting there as a defendant. Now, he's a white male. He thought there was something wrong with his picture. He thought it. And so the prosecutor would get rid of him. Obviously, the defense attorney did not strike him, but the prosecutor always struck him from jury. He said, his experience as a white man suggested to him that there were some white people who were doing some things out here too. He knows his own community. They doing stuff too out here. Every time he comes from jury duty, it's Pookie sitting there at the defense table. And so he just said he couldn't be fair. Now that might be that might be going a little bit far, but there are people who catch that.
Yeah.
And they want to know. There is enormous power with the prosecutor in terms of what's going to be prosecuted, what's not, even when it comes to stand your ground. Mm-hmm. They may not decide not to prosecute everyone who claims stand your ground. Some people might say stand your ground, and they say, okay, I can see why you shot. And that's the end of it. They don't even bring a charge. Mm-hmm. Other people may come in and say, I shot, and I have a defense of stand your ground. The prosecutor can say, no, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do it. That wasn't reasonableness applied, because that's what it's going to turn on. This term, reasonably believes. What a person reasonably believes is going to happen. So I may think that, hey, I don't reasonably believe that if I leave this situation that anything's going to be harmful, or I may not reasonably believe that the person was going to had in mind to do anything to harm me or anybody else. Somebody else can be looking at the same thing and say, well, I reasonably believed that he was going to do something, and so I shot.
Man, Judge, when I just thinking about that, man, that just bothered me. I'm thinking about, because that can be me or you. Like, that ain't just the young people. Like, I think about going into a bar, bumping somebody on accident, and naturally I'm gonna turn around and look, and then I don't know if that person feel like, oh, it's justified for me to shoot, and that's the problem. Like,
that's it.
You never know if the person feel like that's justifiable to them before you even get to the courthouse.
You described it better than I did.
Yeah.
That's what you're really looking at. It's what that person reasonably believes.
Yeah.
And that can be anything.
And that's why we got to be careful. We got to continue not only just educating the black men, but the black women got to be careful too. They got to be too.
Because people feel that black women are more aggressive now, especially that they become very obviously political. Mm-hmm. Black women have a whole lot of things to go through as well. When it comes to the criminal justice system, though, you can look around and you can see who is in it the most. Mm-hmm. And it is us. And situations such as that in Pine Bluff don't help the situation.
Yeah, of course.
They don't help. That doesn't help the situation, people's impression of what's going on, who's at fault, who are the bad folks out here. That really does not help. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that we can get that message across to young people so that they become more sensitized to an obligation, a responsibility. They used to talk to us about, upholding the race. Mm-hmm. I don't know that. I think we didn't pass that on to a lot of the young people. A lot of them do get it, but too many don't get it. Maybe there isn't the outlet to just just talk about it over and over and over until it sinks in with people that you've got to make a contribution to the race. And nowadays, so many young people just don't seem to think that there's that responsibility, that duty, and it might be our fault, the fault of older people, for not passing that on in a better way.
And you know something, Judge, I was thinking about my wife, how she grew up. They sat at the table and ate dinner every day, and we don't do that anymore. And at that dinner table, I didn't grow up with eating at the dinner table. You have, and so I don't know the conversations that people have. And I think that's an opportunity that's been missed in the Black culture, not sitting at the dinner table having that conversation where you can instill a lot of things into our kids. And Judge, I want to go and get you off. I ain't gonna hold you long, but I do want to give you the next whatever minutes just to kind of tell us something, what's going on with you. Once are you planning on running for any office any day soon again? And then after you answer that, just tell us something. I get you on off here. But for everybody, thank you all for listening to it. We just appreciate you for doing it. But go ahead, Judge, give us something, and whatever you want to give us. It doesn't make a difference. It could be something to make us cry or make us smile.
No, I'm at the age where I want to be supportive of younger folks who are out here doing things. Not everybody who's my age is through running for stuff, but I've got a church that I deal with, and I'm involved in my church, and I have some cases that I am finishing up that I've been doing since I've been out. I had one of those cases on the resentencing of a person who was convicted of a capital murder when he was 18 years old. It occurred when he was 17. That's why he fit into the standard of being able to have a resentencing hearing. And I think I had the first trial of it. That's since I've been off the bench. It was over in Crittenden County. Thank God for his sake that when he committed the crime, it was committed up in Craighead County in Jonesboro, but his lawyer back in that day had a change of venue because he didn't think he could get a fair trial in Jonesboro. And the facts of the situation were awful. They were awful. He had planned to go in and I think it was Dillard's store up there and rob the place one night, according to what he told me. And of course, that's different from what others may gather. There was a black guy who worked at Dillard's who was going to let him in, and it was inside job in that respect. Unbeknownst to him, a woman would still be at work that night. And she came in at the wrong time, and he shot and killed her. And she was a white woman. So if that case had stayed in Jonesboro, he might have gotten the death penalty back then. But after that, he spent 37 years in prison from the time he was 18 years old. And so when this holding came down from the U.S. Supreme Court, it's giving juveniles who were not given the opportunity to have a jury consider a term of years, like 60, 40, 68, and no term at all. The jury had only two choices, either life or life without parole or the death penalty. And he had a sentencing hearing. And he's like you suggested earlier, the gun he used was a gun that his father had, and he got it from under the mattress in his father's bedroom, and he went and did that. He didn't go there with the intention of killing somebody. This woman was just doing what she was supposed to be doing, going to work. And she kind of, when she saw him pull a gun out on him, she kind of spoke up a little bit. What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with that kind of thing? And I guess he either got annoyed or nervous or scared, and he pulled the trigger. And I understand that it's easy for young people to get in some situations, but he had all those years to sit in prison. He had an extraordinarily good record. And because he had been there so long, the jury in the resentencing that we had all those years afterwards, the jury gave him a 40-year sentence, and he was able to leave prison immediately because of the fact that he, under the old sentencing, you got good time. And so he was able to get out. He's gone on to Texas. He's got, I think, a good life for himself. So I know that people do change over time, but sometimes there are just some harsh consequences. And it was difficult for him to be straightforward about what the details of that situation were. My heart goes out to him because he had to live all those years carrying that, and his family, had to suffer through that. But you look at the family that was affected.
Mm-hmm.
The prosecutor had wanted us to be able to avoid even a hearing on that case. He was willing to say he spent so long, I'll just agree to, calling it time served and letting him go. But there was anger on the part of the children of that woman who was killed. When the woman, the daughter of the woman, talked about the fact that her mother missed her graduation or her wedding, and she missed all of these things because of, the young man that I ended up representing on this. These people feel this. They live with this the rest of their lives. So the family of the young man who's killed at Watson Chapel is going to live with this the rest of their lives. And so, you can't be too hard on the prosecutors and all in a situation like this. Is because they have to respond to those emotions, victims' families, and they have to be responsive to the wider community that says, we want to put a stop to this. There's no sense in this. If it means giving up one kid, if that's going to get the attention of the other kids so that they don't do it, well, let's just give up this one. He did it anyway. I think that becomes the sentiment. And
I agree.
Yeah, and it's that's just it. So we're just gonna have to be prayerful. We got to go back to getting on our knees and asking God to direct us. And all human beings have problems anyway. I'm not just saying these kids out here have problems. When you get my age, you still gotta have problems. All of us need the Lord. All of us, we could say that before the grace of God go out. We've done some things that we're ashamed of and we shouldn't have done, and we have to repent of.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some things that are done that society is going to exact a harsh penalty for.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And we would be remiss if we didn't tell this to our kids, if we don't teach them, if we don't get something else out of them, try to get them to doing things that are beneficial. And that's just it. I don't know. We ought to keep trying.
Yeah, like I said, my wife was at the dinner table, and they still eat at the dinner table. You gotta understand, Judge. I'm going to this family, and they sitting at the dinner table. That's kind of foreign to me. I'm like, I want the TV. I want the remote control. And this my sister-in-law said. Mom said her generation dropped the ball. In my generation, I'm 51 now, and the ball was dropped somewhere, man, but I think we can still pick that ball up and get the rolling again because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And that's why I'm not chasing money. I'm chasing souls, man. I'm trying to change the impact of people. And Judge, I just thank you for coming on here, man. I really appreciate it because I respect your time. And man, I'm just glad, when I see you all the time, we just chop it up, So I think they still use the word chop it up, but I don't know. But I just love talking to you, man. And I appreciate you, man. I know you got a good heart, man. And just keep doing what you're doing, man. I got one question. Are you planning on writing any books?
I'm not planning on it because I stay too busy to sit down and write. But so no, and there are enough books that I need to read some I have at home that other people have written.
So Judge, one more question, Judge. Are you taking any cases? Are you just done? Or are you just sparingly just decide whenever you want to? So I just for the people to know.
More whenever I want to. I'm not actively seeking them right now.
Okay. Well, everybody, y'all have it. That's my good friend, Judge Marion Humphrey, man. Pine Bluff, we won't hold it against him, but he did up Pine Bluff.
Where else is there to come from with Pine Bluff?
Judge, thank you, man. And I appreciate everybody for listening and your voice, your reason. Like I said, it's a platform to elevate people's voices and things that they care about. And be looking for my t-shirts coming out, your voice, your reason. So if you want one, let me know. I'm gonna have them coming out, have them out in probably the next week or so. And Judge, man, I just thank you once again. And I know everybody else, so thank you. You have really dropped some knowledge on us, shared some things with us. And I just hope we all get motivated. And I'm gonna keep my eye on this prosecutor attorney. This public defender race.
Prosecuting attorney
Lisa Walton. And
yes.
And I hope my sisters, them, don't forget about our brothers. We need to make sure that their presence are always somewhere representing these elected offices and everything, because it's very important to for me to see, that other brothers to see. So thank you, Judge, man. Thank you, Miss Lott. We appreciate you from down there in Camden, Arkansas. That Mary Lott.
Oh, that's Mary Lott's wife. Okay.
Yeah, that's Mary Lott's wife. How you doing, Miss Lott? They some good advocates, man. They some good they do great work down there. They always supported trying for the cause, man. So I appreciate them. Camden, Arkansas got a good family down there, man. So I know Mary Lott was on here, I think, earlier, but his wife is on here. They just great supporters of the work, and we appreciate everything that they do. And like I said, thank you, Judge. I was gonna have you on there for 1 hour, but man, you was dropping them nuggets, so we appreciate you. And let's catch up and talk again, man.
All right, love to do that.
All right, appreciate it.
You still don't look like you're 51 either.
Huh?
You don't look like you're 51 either.
Oh no, I'm not. My sister-in-law said she was 51. No, that wasn't me. Yeah, that wasn't me. My sister said she was 51.
Okay.
All right, go done. All right, everybody. All right, thank you, Judge. I see you, man, next time.
All right, then.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.